Welcome to Infinity Law TV. I'm Gabriel Chung. Today we have the pleasure of having a guest with us, Maureen Flores. She is a domestic violence advocate from Dove. Dove is a nonprofit organization here in Massachusetts devoted to seeing domestic violence ended. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to reach out to domestic violence victims.
So let's jump right into some questions we have for domestic violence.
Sure.
When someone says domestic violence, the first and usually the only thing that comes to mind is physical violence. Is there any other types that Dove considers domestic violence and that require serious attention?
Absolutely. There are many different levels of domestic violence, and physical is just one of them. Emotional, verbal abuse are sorely underrated and can be more devastating sometimes than some of the physical abuses that we see. Some of the non-physical domestic violence would include stalking, which is very, very serious. There's also control tactics and financial abuse, sexual abuse that aren't always considered in with that lump of physical abuse.
Is there a particular threshold, like how many times you get stalked or how many times you get yelled at before you label it domestic violence, or is this sort of a gray area?
Definitely a gray area. If we knew this concretely one way or the other, it would be much easier for victims to get out of those relationships. But emotions get tied in with that gray area, and some of the controlling that is done to victims also plays into that. And so victims don't see it right away. And so no, there is no general rule of thumb that a victim can use to whether it is domestic violence or not. My suggestion would be to call somebody and ask if you feel that anything is amiss in your relationship or just not feeling right or it just doesn't feel good. You should call somebody. Local hotlines everywhere have people standing by to talk to victims whenever they reach out.
And we're going to have the hotline number at the bottom of the screen right now for you. What are some of the warning signs that a victim's, their friends and their family can look for to identify domestic violence?
I would say isolation is a big sign for families and friends. When you see someone that you love that normally is outgoing or interacting with you on a day-to-day basis, or there's things that you normally do with them and all of a sudden they start to pull back a little bit, and reasons for that may not make a lot of sense to you, or if you see signs of cuts, broken bones, bruising that really aren't explained well, or you see a repeat pattern of them, those are big indicators.
So as friends and family, if you suspect that there might be domestic violence, what should you say to that person? Or on the flip side, is there anything that definitely you should not say to them?
Yes to both. I believe that the best supportive things that you can say to someone are exactly what you just said. I'm concerned for you. I think there's something going on. Maybe there's not, and maybe I'm wrong, but here's the local domestic violence number. Maybe you could call them and ask them. It's different for everybody, but things that you should not say are things that would force that victim to change anything in their life at that moment in time. They may not be ready. There might be a lot of factors why they can't make a change. Maybe they're financially dependent on this person. Maybe this person does their childcare so that they can go to work. So if you force them to alienate at a time when they're not ready to, more often than not, you'll see them pull away from you.
Now, do you recommend that friends or family act differently when there are children involved. For example, if it's just a couple, you can say these things. But if you think that there is domestic violence involved in children, should someone go ahead and take a proactive approach and, for example, either call the police or call like a state agency like the Department of Children and Family?
That's a really tough question because, yes, if there's a child involved, you definitely want to make sure that that child is safe in the environment where they're living or that they're in. You do run the risk of alienating that person for your life, and so you have to figure out what is the best solution in that situation, and always, again, go to your domestic violence hotline and agency. Even if you have concerns about a family member or a friend, you don't have to be the victim to call them. You can go for guidance on how to handle situations.
Would it be helpful for a family or a friend to just tell that person, this is how I feel, and I think you should go and leave your abuser?
Well, I don't know that that's a good thing to say. Again, you're forcing the person to make a decision. I think it's okay for you to say, I'm really concerned and I want to offer support to you if you should choose to leave that abuser, but your children are witnessing the abuse. That could be sending a very mixed message to your child. Your child could get hurt. And most parents, that's the thing that gets to them. When they realize that there's level of concern from a loved one, and they really think about that their child could be hurt, that's usually the thing that will catapult somebody. Not always, but will catapult somebody to make change in their life.
Can you tell us a little bit about safety planning, what it is, and how to do it?
That is a very long answer because for every single person, it is unique and it is different. Some victims of domestic violence are not willing to do all things in a safety plan. But general tips such as letting a neighbor know, letting someone know what's going on is a good first step. Being aware of your surroundings all the time. Getting a restraining order as part of a safety plan, although not all victims will take that step. There are a million steps that people can take to be safe. Always having a cell phone in working order with you. If you're going somewhere where you know the abusive person might be and you're trying to stay away from that person, maybe you bring someone with you. Maybe if you've just come back from court from applying for a restraining order, maybe you don't stay in your home that night, or maybe you have a friend come over and stay with you. So see, there are many, many different things that a victim can do to keep herself safe. But it's all about having conversations with somebody who can ask the right questions to know what safety planning steps they should take.
Now, this is the last question we have time for today, but can you tell us a little bit about the services that Dove provides?
Sure. Dove is the only domestic violence agency in the Norfolk County area of Massachusetts. So we have a huge amount of services for a vast community. We have an outreach and family service office that offers domestic violence support groups, self-esteem groups, parenting groups. We also offer individual advocacy with victims. We have legal advocacy programs where people can get information on custody or restraining orders. We also have an emergency shelter. We have a civilian domestic violence advocate program that runs out of both the Quincy and the Randolph Police Departments, and that advocate follows up with every single victim involved with an incident that the police are involved in, which is quite successful.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your information. For more information about Dove or domestic violence, contact the number or the website listed on the screen below. I'm Gabriel Chung, and this is Maureen Flores with Dove, and thank you for watching Infinity Law TV today.